Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. This is a long time coming for me. I've wanted to talk to her since she first popped up on Southern Charm many seasons ago. I think she is a necessary voice that I want to see more on Southern Charm, but thank God she also heads up a show called Southern Hospitality, where she is, I think the dominating force in the Charleston nightlife and restaurant scene. I just was able to go to Charleston for the first time a month ago, and I went to Bourbon and Bubbles. I went to Republic. I went to Lamar's. And I got to tell you, every one of those places was fantastic. And I got a real kind of a clearer view of what makes these shows so special. Without further ado, the one, the only Leva Bonaparte. Leva, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Can you introduce me like that all the time in all
I
of life?
I can totally. And by the way, that's a truncated version. I could keep going because what I think makes you so interesting is that you're one of those people that I love to see on reality TV, because I don't think you need reality TV because you have like all of these businesses going on. I think you get compared to Lisa Vanderpump all the time, but like
Right.
you have like a real stranglehold, I think, on the nightlife scene in Charleston. And
Yeah.
was there any trepidation getting into reality TV? Did you think that was going to help or hurt, or a little mix in between?
Yeah. A little context. I was offered the show by different production companies far before I joined Charm. I kept saying no, no, not interested. And big ones like the folks that
Yeah.
do Below Deck and you know, we were scared because we're already successful.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we
Yes.
needed for the show. And so in that type of scenario, like it could hurt your business if you don't have total control or some control or have the same vision. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a producer. I know nothing about that business. So it wasn't like I could have full control because the show would probably flop. Not my wheelhouse. So, I had to find that special situation where I could definitely find that my vision and the way that I wanted my brand represented would match with the right company, and they would give me on that show I am an EP, but sometimes that's just sort of like a vanity credit, so I had to really put a lot of trust. It's not like you know EPs are technically like, I highly doubt Lisa Vanderpump's like, no, not that scene or not that scene. Nor does she have time, nor do I. So those things get complicated, becomes like you're trusting someone like when the first time you take your kid to school, these are our babies, right? There's so
Yeah.
many concessions and sacrifices and things that we've built, and we're so particular on how you saw our spaces. They're very like meticulous on the design and how it works and who we hire and everything. So to like trust that, it took a lot. We said no for a long time.
Yeah.
And then when I did Charm, it was kind of like the universe was like kept offering me things, and I was like, dude, this way, not dodging this, dodging that. And then when Charm came along, I thought that they were meeting with me to talk about Craig, which is like the funniest story. I met with them at one of my restaurants. And then,
Because you've known these guys for a long time, and you've
yeah,
known.
and one
And
of
by
the
the way, I
execs
didn't
goes,
realize Sewing Down South is like right across the street from Republic.
right, right, and I know, obviously known Craig forever since he was like a baby, um, not technically, but like emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah. Which was just a
but
couple of
anyways,
years ago, if we were to be
yeah,
honest. He's grown up a lot in the
yeah,
last couple of years.
a lot. But yeah, I would see everyone running up and down King, and Charleston is a lot smaller than I think people realize. So anywho,
Oh, I didn't
I've known them
realize
for a
that at
long
all.
time, and these
Yeah,
execs
it's so
come down
small.
and they're saying to me, "Well, Leva, why do you keep talking about Craig so much?" And I was like, "Isn't that why we're having this meeting?" And they were like, "No, we want to put
Why,
you on the show." And I was
why
like,
are you obsessed with Craig,
"Yeah,
Leva?
it was
Jeez.
so
Yeah.
funny." And my husband's sitting right next to me, so they were like, why do you keep, and I was like, I thought you guys came to talk to me about Craig. I have no idea that they had come to sort of see the spaces and talk to me about me joining the show, because to me that was so far-fetched. I've always sort of since season one like visited the show. I was very close with Cameron, so
Yeah.
scenes here, scenes there. But I was like, well, I'm not Southern. How are you going to put me on the show? And they were like, but you are Charleston.
Yeah.
And that's what Kathleen said to me. She's like, you are Charleston. Everyone knows who you are. You have like a heavy foot here. You're well connected. Like people think of Charleston, they're going to think of you, and your husband, they're going to think of you, right? So you are the South. So I was like, I am the South. Okay. I
I
was
am the
like,
South.
I didn't,
Yeah.
it literally, and they were like, can we see the other spaces? I was like, sure. Like, just sort of go. And then we went home and I was like, Lamar, are they asking me to be on the show? And he's like, yeah, they want you on the show. You know what I mean? So,
And then how soon was then that spin-off into Southern Hospitality, which actually really then focuses on all of your businesses? Because obviously we see the cast go to like Bourbon and Bubbles and things like that on Southern Charm. But
mhm,
then with Republic and Southern Hospitality, that's a whole new ball game because
right,
then we really get to see you in that driver's seat. We get to
right.
see you have some of those intense back room meetings
Yes.
with
The
the
ones I
goof
love.
with which, by the way, so I bumped into Joe Bradley, TJ, and Brad last night, and
hmm
I said, do you have a message for Leva? I'm talking to her in the morning, and she said, stop yelling at us, stop yelling at us. So, and then they love you, but stop yelling at them.
Yeah, I do. I do sort of go 0 to 100. I mean, I've been to therapy, but listen,
I've
lower
been to
leva.
therapy.
I always tell them, I'm like, just don't poke the bear, But yeah, and it's funny because I'll text them and they know when a voice note's coming in, I'm going to be raising my voice because I can't explain. I can't do
Why
that
would
over
you put a
text.
voice, Leva? These voice notes can be used against you on the show. Why would you ever do that?
So I'm always in the right. I'm always in the right. Yeah, so they're, listen, at the end of the day, I love those guys. They're good kids. They hate when I call them kids, but to me they are.
Well, they kind of
um
are. I mean,
yeah,
like, they have such kid energy, and I mean that in the
yeah,
best possible way of like, oh, I
right,
remember when I could drink all night and then be
right,
okay the next day. And
right.
I hung out a little bit with those guys in Charleston, and I thought how exciting for them. Like, this isn't Los Angeles, it's Charleston. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
have expected signing up to work at one of your establishments that all of a sudden they would be thrust into TV. And you have now a little experience with this, but I think
Right.
with like, I want to talk about Southern Charm, but Southern Hospitality premieres third season on January 2nd. So start
Yeah.
2025 off right. And I've been telling the audience what you guys built in the second season was really solid in terms of a show that's like really popping off because unfortunately, these kids are doing what these kids are doing and creating mess. And then Michael Beck, the producer, says season 3 is like insane. And
It's
I
insane.
so
It's
you feel that
insane.
way
I've
too,
seen,
just living
yes,
through it.
I've seen a few of the first, like, very, like, raw cuts, so to speak, like little snippets here and there. I was in it, and my jaw was on the floor because I was like, I did not. It gave context to a lot of things that I get frustrated with at work. Like, where I'm like, why is she screaming? Why is she, like, what's hap? Because I'll just come in, work. They'll share certain things, other things, and then I'm like, what? What, I have a limited amount of context, and then when I see the show, I'm like, aha. I could have gone a little easier on her, whatever it was. You know what I mean? Because I don't have the full context of what's going on, and technically, HR wise, it's not like I can pry. So
I mean,
I
yeah,
try to just be like,
can you use the scenes from Southern Hospitality in HR meetings? Like, hey, we
yeah,
see you on camera doing this, or there are many times with like people like taking like you have Maddie, you have Gilly, you have all these people kind of
yeah,
doing their thing, and you get to
yeah.
see it on camera from a different perspective as a boss.
Right. So the first season 1 and 2, I did not use anything I used that I saw on Bravo cameras as ammo. If I have my own cameras now, if I saw something when the Bravo cameras were not up, then that was used. Like, hey, you're out of here, you're fired, you're this or that. Because I have a lot of cameras. That's how the show sort of like started. Was me and Lamar sitting on Friday nights and looking at the cameras like, did they just did she just throw a water bottle at her in the back? And like, who is this running in here? Why is it? You know what I
So
mean? So
you were
like
watching a whole first
we were
season
watching
before the
our own
season even
show.
happened.
Yeah, yeah. So that's sort of how it started. But the first season 1 and 2, I didn't use any of that because, to be honest, like, they were young and they were kind of showing off. When you take your kid out and you're like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing right now? It was kind of like that. It was a lot of showing off, and I was like, I know that and there was a lot of miscommunication. So this was the sort of like the learning game, because to run a real actual successful business and also have cameras come in and also have like people kind of acting up because they think they need to. And so like season 1 and 2, I was like, you guys don't do, you will get fired. You know what I mean? So it was like
Yeah.
season 2, when I went into season 2, because there was firings and stuff, I was like, enough is enough. Season 1, I let a lot slide. Over the summer, the rest of the summer, cameras were up. Some people got fired. A ton of people on show, not on show. You know, everyone was acting up. It was like mayhem, you know, like, and then of course everyone's like thinks they're a little famous, you know, and it's like, oh, well, you were not Leonardo DiCaprio. You had a season. Wonderful. But everyone, like, back to business. Business is business, right? And they know that I'm really serious about that because my number one priority is my business and it's not the show.
See, that's
So
what I love. That's the vibe I get. So that's why I say
yeah,
almost reality shows come secondary. It happens to be that everything that you're involved in makes really solid reality TV. But at the end of
right.
the day, you got to think about long term. And what I imagine is you guys are going to keep opening up restaurants and bars and probably
Yes.
fanning out to other locations. You know, because I was just shocked at like what you said about King Street. It really is. I didn't realize what a small environment that street is, and it's just. It gave me a lot of perspective on the men of Southern Charm, where I'm like, oh, dude, Shep and Austin will never fully settle down. There's young college girls just like streaming in and out of these bars.
100%, 100%. And it's all in this like sort of congested area. It's not like New
Yeah.
York where you can go to another borough and avoid someone or whatever. So it makes for probably great TV because King Street in itself is just one big dramatic, like in real life, exes running into exes and people running into, you cannot avoid. Just you have to stay at home if you want to avoid anything. So the whole thing for me was like business comes first, and I think they thought show came first. So, you know, I was like, no, even the show was like, well, what are we gonna do? You're firing people. I'm like, figure it out. Let's turn it into a firing show. I couldn't care less. I'm running a business.
Turn
You know
it
what I
into
mean?
a
And I think
firing show.
producers' jaws were on the floor. I was like, we can pivot. Let's make this a show about who does love a fire. Because I was just like, business is first. That's my bread and butter. That's what we're good at. That's what we're gonna keep doing. So I think it was, you know, there was no fluff. And second season, like I said, was a rough one because it was like everyone just sort of got shook. And I was like, no more playtime, no more showing off for the
Yeah, you
cameras, no more
fired, you
nothing.
brought in that
You'll
new
get fired.
lady. You brought in the new lady that was like
Yeah.
really intense, that didn't seem
Yeah.
to smile a lot. And I was like really
Hmm.
scared of her. And then
Yeah.
I was like, this, because I ran a nightclub in like the early 2000s out here in Los Angeles. And I
Oh, I
just,
had no idea.
but it was just so intense, that
Hmm.
environment for 3 years. And like, it really is a business where you're counting out at the end of the night bottle service and like tips and
Yeah.
all of this stuff. Like it's real. And then you're also trying to like have a party where you're doing shots with clientele, and it just
Hmm.
gets really messy. And that's why I always
Yeah.
gravitate towards, I think Southern hospitality is just, it keeps getting better. And I do liken it to Vanderpump Rules, but it's even better because it's in Charleston and you don't
Hmm.
have the influencer culture per se, even though
Right.
some of your, staff is starting to get a little known, and Maddie's on the road with DJ James
Right.
Kennedy. So
Right.
it's why, I mean, what's that like to, watch these people that you have taken under your wing or just given them jobs when they start to feel or sow their wild oats and start to feel themselves a little bit more than just their like normal bartender? They're like, I'm a star
Yeah, I
now.
mean, that's inevitable. First season, but when I started, I was like, no, they're different. My kids are different. You know, like they're not going to get caught up at all. Their attitude's not going to change. These are my kids. You know, like I just was like, they're nothing, but inevitably human nature, so I had to give them a swift, kick to the behind to get them back together because I was like, listen, at the end of the day, this stuff is temporary. We're running a business, we're doing other things. Stay on your P's and Q's. You know what I mean? And that's how season 2 started, which was like a little bit of a rough one for me because you'll even see the time when I fire Mia and she will
Yes.
look at the camera almost like, is this for real? And I'm like, yes, girl, this is for
I couldn't
real.
believe you fired me. I mean, I
This is
understand
for
why you
real.
fired Mia, but I was like, wait, she's a regular on the show. How is this going to work?
How is this gonna, I mean, producers sat down with me. They're like, how is this gonna work? I was like, that's your job. If you thought you were coming somewhere where things are fake, not here, not in my world. Because I can't, I'm not an actress. I'm not good at, you know what I mean? I can lean into a mood maybe, but that's about it as far as
Well,
you're gonna get from me. So you guys are
what's
gonna have
that
to figure
learning
this
curve?
out.
What's that learning curve for you of all of a sudden going on to Southern Charm, trying to find your way on there? And we know Lamar was on there with the first season, and then I think he
Yeah.
chose to step away, which by the
Yeah.
way, that Lamar's like that, the decoration in Lamar's is like, I don't know, like it's like this. It's like a cigar vibe with like a
Yeah.
classy. But then at the same time, TJ's selling fancy corn
Yeah.
dogs, and like it really is like this incredible. I don't like, what do you call that? Like a speakeasy or
I mean, it was essentially like the design was supposed to feel very southern, very like it's a sporting club as opposed to a sports bar. It's supposed to feel sort of like, like a polo club or something like that, like very southern essentially,
yeah,
right? But not, we didn't want it to feel masculine. We just wanted it to feel southern and sort of a mix between maybe like a ski lodge meets a preppy bar, like just really essentially Lamar and I's taste. You know what I mean? Like what we
yeah,
love aesthetically. And we built Lamar's really just for ourselves. It was the first space that we built to be just really for ourselves. And it felt like rich and warm,
yeah.
but it also has like 24 TVs in it. Hence my husband who loves sports. I know nothing about sports. I'm
I
literally
don't
like, go
either.
sports. I don't care. Let's play Bravo on every television
Yeah,
set.
exactly. I was like, where's the
Yeah.
Bravo bar in these
Yeah,
places?
just make
Come
it a
on.
Bravo bar. Yeah. And it's very much to Lamar and I because Lamar and I like good food. We don't like fancy food necessarily, but just like good food. So TJ's dogs are so good.
Yeah,
And
they
so
really
it
are.
kind of, it's a fancy dog, but it also reminds you like you're technically at a sports bar. Even though you forgot that you're at a sports bar, you are. So you're going to get a fancy hot dog and it tastes really good and it's going to come in a huge tower with sparklers and it's going to be epic. You know what I mean? So uh that's when, that's the whole Lamar's of it all. That's sort of what it was. It was kind of like an FU to Yelp. Like, this is for us. We don't care what anybody
Absolutely.
else thinks. We're going to offer good things, good drinks, good service, and like we don't care
I see.
otherwise. Like
I
it's
really, I mean, Charleston already is an amazing place to visit, but I will say for all the Bravo fans out there, plan a trip to Charleston because, we always tease about the circuit. We call it out here in Los Angeles where you have
Mhm.
Sir and Tom Tom and Pump closed down, but you have in a very small radius, you have all of these things that you've seen on TV. But the
Yeah.
same, like in Charleston, you have Lamar's right next to it is Bourbon and Bubbles. A little further down,
Mhm.
you have Republic. Yeah, I mean, you
Yep.
have this guy. Is there ever any worry? I was wondering about this because I think each individual place has its own vibe. As I was going
Mhm.
into it, do you ever worry about like cannibalizing business from each of the? Because like there's only so many places that people can visit. Does that ever concern you about so many places that you guys are a part of, or is it just about dominating King Street?
I mean, at the end of the day, King Charleston is a little different than other cities. Other cities, people sort of go and they stay. Charleston in locals move. You'll never meet a local that's like, I started at whatever place and stayed there. Like they'd be like, what? Did you pass out? Did you take a nap? Charleston moves. It's like a moving city because everything's sort of in proximity. So we just sort of punt people back and forth. It's like, oh, you want to start somewhere kind of loungy where you can still have a conversation, start at Lamar's, get a dog, or then go over to Republic and like, really club it, or you want to have a nice dinner or some beautiful like, craft cocktails at Bourbon and Bubbles and have a little
Yeah.
date night. Then you want to kind of not get too crazy in club, but you'll come and do VIP service at Lamar's and get late at Lamar's. Like we sort of get to know the customer and we move them back and forth, and it's
No,
like,
I mean we moved back and forth. We were hitting them all up. We started at
yeah.
Bourbon and Bubbles, had like a nice meal, and then we moved over to I think Republic and then ended at Lamar's. Sorry to talk about all your businesses, but I was just kind of fascinated with the actual like this is how real these kind of shows are. But with Southern
Hmm.
Charm this season, first off, I need more Leva. Like I just watched the second episode. You're referred to by JT, and you're causing some sort of drama. I don't know if you saw this week's episode yet, but you're
I
already causing
did.
drama. Wait, can I just ask you? I don't know if what you're like. What who is JT? Like, what's the deal? And I think he's like a necessary character for a reality television show because
Yeah.
he's so out there. And even like
He's so
Craig,
chaotic.
he
Yeah.
really like pushes Craig's buttons, Austin's buttons. So that's interesting to see. But like,
Hmm.
what has your relationship been with JT and like what's your take on him? Because we already know that he got upset with the production towards the end and
Right.
he might not have participated, which is a dang shame. But like, what is
Right.
your take on JT?
I was friends with JT. You know what I mean? I've been friends with him since before the show, and he's a businessman, and he's definitely like eccentric. He's definitely an odd guy, but I enjoy him. I felt like he was
Yeah, it's
honest.
fun.
I felt yeah, I felt like he kind of was his own worst enemy. Like he could be honest, but then just his delivery is so like chaotic, and you can't follow where he's going, and you want to reel him back. Like, wait, you were correct, but now I don't know where you're going with this. So that's sort of how that whole scene that I saw, I was like, whoa, I did not know what I said was that intense.
I
And don't
didn't
get me
either.
wrong,
I was just like, yeah, Austin probably dated a lot of people, and that's what you said on the little party van. That you're
yeah, I
like,
mean,
oh, that's
what it
weird.
all, yeah, all it started was, now remember, Rodrigo's a good friend of Austin. So he was just like, he's been dating this girl, and he said that the girl had been his girlfriend for a year. So that's vastly different than just dating and now they're official, right? So I was like, wait, what? Because I didn't know who she was, but I had met some girls that are like, oh, I'm talking to Austin. But this was months before, right? So like any grown adult starts with dating people and probably dating multiple people, and then they're like, you know what? I don't. Everyone else is benched or like out of the picture. Now I'm officially with this person. So that's sort of where that started. And then Rodrigo was like, oh no, like they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but it hasn't been a year, which it hadn't been. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I was sort of just setting the record straight. Like, let's not start this narrative because this is going to get really messy. I actually wasn't even trying to say anything against Austin. I was just trying to I try to keep things like accurate because
yeah.
they very quickly become messy. And so I was like, Rodrigo, you're his friend. Like, let's phrase this appropriately. And he fully was like, oh yeah, that's not what I meant. So but JT caught that, and it was like squashed on the bus, but JT was like, oh no, we're gonna take this, and this is
Oh, and he runs with and
ammo.
JT, he's Tiny Tim this season with the canes and like all of this stuff. And then I'm like seeing that scene with Craig and Shep from this week's episode, and this will be out like the day after the episode, so everybody will have watched it. But I was
Yeah.
shocked because Craig is I don't know if he's really like that in real life, but he seems very extremely sensitive. And he just was not like going to have rumors spread about Austin from
Mm-hmm.
JT. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think, like, well, that's what you're here to do, is kind of have these weird conversations. And Craig immediately beelines and says, I can't do this. And
Mm-hmm.
I always say there's no crying in baseball or reality television. Like, you got to stay in that scene. But like,
Yeah.
that's what I was like, is any of this even worth its weight in gold to like be talking about, or is it something that can be shooed away completely?
I mean, at the end of the day, what we said was sort of handled on the bus, but I felt the only thing that was strange to me is I felt like maybe as I was watching it, I was like, JT must know something I don't. You know what I mean? Because I sort of said it in the fact that, like, let's correct the timeline and let's say things accurately. But I wasn't like trying to come for receipts or come for Austin or whatever.
No.
To me, it was odd that he used me so much because I was like, wait, this was already done. So I was waiting for it to sort of pan out. But then it was like, well, we should talk to Leva. And I was like, okay, JT, what? So I was waiting for JT to maybe present something that supported my sort of misphrasing and what I was trying to communicate. But then it looked like it panned out to nothing. And yeah, Craig does do a lot of like, I'm not doing this. That's definitely Craig's thing. He'll storm off and you're like, wait, I'm not done talking to you.
He's like,
You just
I own a business. I can't do, I got to sew.
yeah.
I've got
That's
a
Craig's thing
business.
now. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you seem to have a lot of these guys' numbers throughout the seasons. And we've seen you like, it's a little murky, but even at that season finale at Craig's holiday party, and you know all of these people, but
Yeah.
like, Craig seems to be I really like Craig a lot, and
Hmm.
I really seen him grow. I mean, it's so funny. The bar is so low for all of us men, in terms of like growing, but you've
Yeah.
seen Craig grow a lot. I mean, would you agree with that statement? And you also said this season you've seen Shep grow up a lot. Do
Yeah.
you think that's true?
Yeah. I definitely think that the guys, this season in particular, yeah, I saw a whole sort of grown version of Shep that I hadn't seen, even in the way that he was sort of like arguing or like a vulnerability. Like there was just something I was like, who's this chef? Like this is sort of like this grown guy. And Austin as a businessman, I kind of was like, okay, he's relaunching the beer with like a new logo and like all this stuff. And that takes a lot to come back and sort of relaunch, rebrand or whatever it is. Like that takes a lot of grit, I think. And people don't understand that. It's always easy to win the first time. It's
Yeah.
trickier when businesses like, which inevitably is going to happen. It's not that people who win, the people who win are not like the ones that are just make it. It's the ones that just keep trying, right? And keep
Yeah.
trying and keep pivoting and
Dare to
keep
suck
just
and
don't
learn
give
from your
up.
mistakes. Yeah.
Right, right. And so for me to see Austin sort of like, push back and again come to me and be like, so let's pick the beers back up, Leva. Like, let's, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, so
So you're gonna
he's
carry Trop Up in your places.
I mean, you'll have to tune in to see, but I had some respect for him in the way that he brought
Yeah.
back. He relaunched. They had a whole can thing, and he has a new flavor. And I was like, okay, this takes grit because it wasn't like he just was handed this perfect business model and it worked out perfectly the first time because it never does. It never does, right? So
Yeah.
I had that to me felt really grown from Austin. And yeah, it was a new side of everyone that I've seen. I think Craig is still trying to figure out that, like, I think he forgets. It's like, sometimes you get married. Sometimes you get married. That
Yeah. I
sounds
was
like the
like, yeah,
weirdest
I've done it
statement.
once. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're yeah, you're in a relationship, and sometimes people think that when you're in a relationship, you're the same person, and you're not. Like, if I say something, that doesn't mean my husband said it, or if I act a certain way, like I'm not his appendage. I am my own person. Yes, I'm married to this person, but I am my own person. So I think Craig forgets that, like, his business is not just his face. Like, if Craig acts a certain way, that doesn't mean you know what I mean? Like, it's a little
Yeah.
different. And so I
Yeah.
think he's finding his place where he can be Craig and be human and not just like some blow up doll that represents the company. Like, we can't be that. I can't be perfect. I don't always say the right things. I don't always do the right things, but I own a very, like, a business that I'm proud of, that I feel like is ethical, is providing, has good service, is I'm proud of my business. And my business is not perfect either, but I'm proud of it and I sleep well at night, but I am not, my business. If that
Yeah.
makes
It
any
seems.
sense.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah. Well, I
he's
mean, I think
struggling to
there's.
find that sweet spot where he gets to just be Craig and he doesn't think like, "Oh, it's just going to affect my sales." Like, it's
Well,
not.
there's got to be an intense learning curve, and once you
It
actually see
is.
something working, then you're scared that that's going to go away. And I would imagine all of that plays into these things. And then, just from the trailer, we see that the guys might think like, "Oh, it's Paige. Paige is like bringing you down," or you've got to like. And I'm so interested to see that, just because men, we have such a weird time talking about our feelings and emotions as well. So that
Mhm.
men dynamic, I always said with Southern Charm, the females, like, to me, anchor the show, and I wish there were more female stories, but sometimes the females on Southern Charm seem so much more emotionally mature. So
Mhm.
sometimes that's not going to be the most exciting, but it'll ground
Yeah.
the show. And then you have these men, like facing like Peter Pan type influences, and then also like
Right.
trying to run businesses and trying to beat the clock, like Shep
Right.
doing ayahuasca and saying that's like 4 years of therapy. I was like, you should try therapy on top of the ayahuasca. That would be good as well. But it's fun to
I
watch
felt
Shep
like
be
that
proud of
indicated
himself.
that he's never done therapy, so I was just like, "Okay, bro."
Yeah, it was like,
All
this is
right.
amazing. But by the way, I was like,
I
I
did
was happy
mushrooms
for him.
last night. It was like 5 years of therapy, man.
Yeah, I was like, I was at Coachella and I did mushrooms. Am I fixed? Is like
I might
that
be
does it for
saved.
me?
Yeah,
Well,
my
that
marriage is good. I did mushrooms at Coachella. I'm all good.
Well,
I'm
that's like
grown.
him telling Austin about these intense visions he had. Like, part of it's like, I know it's a very real experience, but as a viewer, we're like, oh, this is kind of funny too. On top of that,
Yeah.
and do you watch the show and have those moments, even though you've known these guys for a long time? Are you still able to enjoy, or do you roll your eyes?
I mean, Shep at ayahuasca and Austin's reaction to what he's telling him, I was like, this is hilarious. Like, this
I,
is this
I
is why this is why the girls sit there and we're like,
Yeah, and then Craig's cooking in the kitchen, and he's like, "These idiots, these." I was like, "This,
yeah, like,
everybody's idiots. It's amazing."
yeah, it's just like a room full of morons and we're all just hanging out and just, yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. It's it's real. I will say Shep has grown a lot. I don't necessarily think it was due to ayahuasca, but
Oh,
he
and he's very proud of his body this year. We already got a butt scene from Shep in the
yeah,
first episode, and you
yeah,
could tell he's really enjoying having lost that 15 pounds, which is great. And
yeah.
then we got to meet Miss Bahamas this episode,
Mm,
which
yeah.
did you? I think she's on next week's episode, And that seems like an interesting relationship as well, because she might be a fan of Southern Charm. Are you allowed to tease anything with your feelings on her or that
I
relationship?
mean, immediately when I met her, I knew that she was sort of in the picture. I'd seen some things and some chat about it. When I met her, I was like, wow, she's so stunning. And I also was like, she's also like so young, you know? Um, but she came up and she was just like, I don't know, just very, very cool, very Rihanna. Like she was like, girl, I'm here for, what did she say to me? She said something like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And I was like,
What are you
okay.
talking? Yeah, yeah, okay,
What?
yeah. Do you want a
You know,
drink?
like
Yeah.
I was like, what are you, huh? And I immediately was like, oh, is she talking about Chef? Like she doesn't, to me, it indicated she was not that into Chef. And I said it. I said it to everyone. I even said it to Chef. I was like blaring it from the rooftops because Shep looked like he was like in love. So I was like, I don't know if I trust this girl. I don't know. She's cool. I would want her as my
Yeah.
friend. But as somebody who's dating my friend, I was like, you know, and here's what the guys forget. These dudes that are like 40 something, like the Sheps, sorry, Shep, they do this like player thing, you know, for so many years. And at some point they meet a young girl that plays them. I'm like, listen,
And it's kind of
brother, you
interesting
can't.
retribution for everything they've like enacted over the years. So it's weird because you almost start like, even in this brief moments, you feel bad for Shep of like, oh wow, like he's gonna get his heart broken. And we
Mm-hmm.
just come off a season where he potentially broke Taylor's heart, even though there was such murkiness there. But it is
Right.
wild to put, like, we all do that in our normal lives. We do stupid things, but it's not on
Right.
camera. Like, we don't have
Yes.
to like live with this.
Right.
Oh, really quickly too, how's your son? Because I missed the cooking scenes with your son. You know, a couple
Uh
seasons ago, you'd be in there and you'd be like cooking with your son, and then I
We
was
do a
like,
lot of cooking. I
yeah, I
refuse
was
to
like,
have a son that can't cook. I
well, I said
refuse.
you need a cooking show with your son. I used to say, I said we need a YouTube cooking
Oh,
show with Leva and
that
her
would be
son.
cute. We cook a ton. I
Yes.
never even thought about that. Maybe I need to explore that. We cook a ton. I refuse to raise a male that cannot feed himself healthy, good food. That's
You
it. I do not want him to
you're
get
way
married
too
because
on
he needs
top
a
of things,
chef.
Leva. You're not you like, I mean, has anybody ever tried to force you to be messier on these shows? Because you seem to be a grounding presence, and that's why I'm like, are they keeping Leva off Southern Charm because she's too grounding? Is she a grounding force too much?
I mean, I think I'm a little, I mean, listen, this year I just came to have fun. I was like, your problems are your problems. I'm going to have a drink and have a good time because I was just like I had no more bandwidth anymore for the stuff. But yeah, I definitely, I was very conscious about my son being on the show because he loves it. He loves it. And so I was like, I feel like you're too young and you're way too into this. So I wanted him to have a little bit of a reprieve and get a little bit older and like make a conscious decision on if he wants to be on the show because he loves it way too much. Um, but he's doing great. I'm homeschooling, so he's home all the time. We're doing all the
Wow,
things.
you're homeschool.
Uh,
How do you wait? I don't get how you see, this is like,
I don't
I can
either,
barely do this
Ryan.
podcast. How do you do all this? I mean, like, is there, I don't understand people that work at this kind of level where you have all of these businesses, you have two reality shows, you actually have a family, a husband, an actual friends and family. I don't know. And by the way, you're taking all of this time to talk to me. Like, how do you do this? And how do you not pull your hair out on a daily basis?
Yeah, there's a lot of breakdowns. I won't lie. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of moments. I was screaming bloody hell at my husband this morning. So yeah, there are moments that,
Lamar's like,
like
that's why I'm not going to ever go back on reality TV. I'm not putting this out there. Yeah.
no, Lamar's definitely like that camera would turn on and I was like, why is he moving? He'd like move like a robot. And I'm like, what are you? I don't know if you can see there's one scene we're filming in the kitchen and I give little like a cake pop or something. And I'm looking at him like, why are you? He just a camera turns on and he's like, it's like he's stiff, like someone hairsprayed him into like, So anyway, it doesn't work for me. I was like, I can't film with this dude. Like he's acting
But
super
no,
weird.
it's a good choice.
So
Wait, what do you think of Miss Patricia? Because I feel like obviously a matriarch and has been around Charleston and has lived such a life. And it's interesting
mhm,
to watch her in scenes like the first episode. She gets very offended with the cane, which, JT,
mhm.
what a weird move, like a JT move. And then the big storyline is that Craig tells everybody that JT called Miss Patricia a bitch, which I
Yeah,
think
wild.
seeing the previews like really comes up throughout the season, but they don't have the footage of Craig actually saying that in the scene. So I'm like, is Craig being messy? Is Craig putting in like words? Because JT obviously is a wild character, but did he actually say this? What is your
Right.
what is your experience with Miss Patricia? Is she somebody that you look up to? Is like, I mean, she has
Yeah, Miss
stories. I would
Patricia
just amazing.
is yeah, she's amazing. She's a wealth of information and knowledge and charm. Like anytime I can chat with Miss Pat, I'm soaking it up. Like I was looking for art for, Lamar's, and she was sort of giving me like the in, and she was like, I can help you find, equestrian art and all that stuff. She's incredible. And I wish they would show more of that with Miss Patricia.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
just I mean, she's essentially really like an icon. Like to be able to sit with her, and she um like I was reading the biography of what's his last name, Talion Andre Talion,
Oh,
the
Andre Talley, yeah, the big
yeah,
fashion
I don't know how
guy
to
that
pronounce the
passed
last
away.
name, but she was like, we were very close. And there's like I think there was an area in the book where he even mentions her. Like,
They went to
I
the
was like,
Met Gala
what?
together, I
You were
believe, one
close? She's
year.
like, yes, we would hang
Yeah.
out all the time. And I'm like, how do we not know this? Like the stuff she would tell me, I'm like, I just want to soak it up, And she's
I wish
so,
Bravo would do a docu-series on certain matriarchs. Like I would love to know her
hmm
entire story because you really see, and that's another one. She'll like watch these men and you can tell she gets a kick out of it. She gets
yeah,
a kick out of like Craig spilling things on her furniture and break. But at the
right.
same time, it's like, God, she has all of their numbers and she's like this quiet force. And I think
hmm
it's funny that Whitney is just there. And like
Yeah,
Whitney is kind of like uh, he's like the guys, but just in a different, more
he
astute
is. And Whitney,
way.
again, is like so accomplished, so intelligent, like so. I mean, you sit with Whitney, you're like, you went where? You did what? You were a part of what? And then sometimes Whitney has this like boyishness to him, the same way Miss Pat does. Miss Pat has such a young spirit. And I was just with Whitney in New York, and I was giggling with Lamar. I was like, sometimes Whitney just looks like a 14-year-old boy to me. Like sometimes just the way he like moves or something, like something about him. It's quite adorable, but it's just like it's so young. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you like a little boy? Like it's just very, there's something about the two of them that just reads kind of raw and young. It was
Oh
kind of
yeah.
making me giggle. And he has that same thing where he can just sort of, he has like a young spirit about him, and you'll catch moments where he does the same thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all has like just a beautiful chemistry, all of it. I think Miss Pat has a bandwidth for the guys that we don't. She's from another generation. I don't know if men used to be like that, but it's certainly, there are times where I'm like, this is not acceptable
Yeah.
in
No,
my
it's what
generation, and I'm older than the other girls, like by a generation. So I don't know how the ones in their 30s and 20s deal with it, but
did
I'm
you
like,
you were in New York for the Southern Charm premiere, and I know that a lot of the Southern Hospitality cast was there. Did
hmm
anything? I mean, I worry about when people get together for these parties without an actual camera following them. Did
yeah,
things get crazy? Did things get messy? We saw Rodrigo. Probably was the drunkest from a video that I
yes,
watched. Did
yes.
anybody? Was there any drama at the Southern Charm premiere?
I
Is
think there was
everybody
like
talking
little,
to each other?
yeah, I think there was like little bits of drama, but there was nothing that I know of that was that serious. But I'm certainly not the one that's going to be in the middle of it because I went home early. I was like, my kid's here. He's going to get up at 6. But there was whispers and like little things that were sort of brewing where I was like, we're together. We need to step, from my perspective, even the hospitality, I can't control. They're always together. And I'm like, separate, wait till the cameras come, just go to work and go home. But I can't control that at this point. They just need to have a camera here 24/7. But the mix of hospitality and charm is very interesting because don't forget, Molly used to work for me. Sally used to work for me.
See, that's and we
Sally
haven't.
used to date Joe.
Sally was on
Joe
The
dates
Bachelor
Maddie.
too, right?
Correct. Correct. And it's just, there's a lot there. Sally used to date Taylor's current
Gaston.
boyfriend. Yes. And Taylor used to date the boyfriend of Sally that you'll meet all season. So like there's a lot of, and then at the premiere there's Joe, there's Maddie, there's Sally, I saw Sally be like say something like, "Oh, is Maddie coming to Joe?" And he's like, and Joe was like, "She's right there." Like, it was just weird. I was like, "Oh, what's happening?" And Sally's single, and like,
Oh,
so you just never know what's gonna
yeah.
brew.
No, that's, I mean, Southern
I was
Charm is
just
one of
waiting for
my,
Luann to walk in, and I was like,
well,
"It'll
that
be just
I,
perfect,"
I now I've talked to Joe a couple of times, and each time I'm like, this guy hooked up with Countess Luann. He's like, oh no, no. Do you ever like away
And
from
Joe
work?
used to date Craig's ex-girlfriend, so there's
Yeah.
like a lot.
And
You
Joe
remember
dated
Natalie
Danielle from Summer House too.
and Summerhouse? Yeah, so there's like a lot of.
Wait, he dated Natalie too?
He dated Natalie for a long time. Yeah,
Oh my
after Craig.
God.
Hmm.
Do the Southern Charm guys get along with the Southern Hospitality guys, or are they threatened by the Southern Hospitality guys, do you think?
I want to say that I would hope that they're not. I mean, I think that first season Charm was definitely like, who are these clowns? You know what I mean, kind of deal. And I think they were sort of. I think naturally there's maybe a little bit of a like, what is this show? But I think once second season and now third season, they're like, they understand that everyone's here to stay. You know what I mean? They've been established. It was like rookie, the way you treat like rookies, kind of. And now
Yeah.
they know, like, listen, the show's doing really well. And also, I think the two shows like they help each other. There's
Yeah.
there's
They're the
I
feeder
think
system. Yeah.
yeah. Somebody had said something snarky once, and I was like, listen, if New York can have multiple shows and other cities can have multiple shows, why can't we? We can
Oh, yeah.
coexist and help each other, and both shows can be a hit. I mean, Charleston is such a unique American city. And essentially, yes, it's smaller than a New York or an LA, but it is just it's wild when you come here. People all the time from bigger cities are like, I want to move here. I want to move here. And I'm like,
Oh,
it's a small
it
town,
was
big city feel.
we were blown. Me and my girlfriend were blown away, and we just had the best time. And you were so accommodating. You were so nice to us. And my girlfriend wanted me to bring up when I bumped into you at Lamar's. You were at
Yeah.
the door, and we were coming in, and we took a picture. And your friend knew immediately. Like she was like, "Give me your phone," and she knew like the setting. And she's like, "I'm gonna post it with this interview." But she was like, she knew the setting and how to make it work. And I was like, "That's a good friend that
Yeah,
Leva
because she was
has."
like, no, the picture won't be good. Let's put the lighting on and everything. Yeah, I mean, it was, I had told her that I was trying to run into, but I was like, I'm tired. I can't.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
we
You know
were
what I
tired.
mean? So I was
We
so
were
happy
tired
that
too.
we
We were like,
ran into each other.
how long does this keep going on a Saturday night? Like we're old, and this was but it was truly incredible. So I just
And
want
it's
to
like that
remind
all week, Ryan. Like,
that
I'll go
yes,
to New York and LA, and I'm like, where is everyone? And everyone's going to bed because they're going to work. But in Charleston, like King Street is busy every single night. Like you see people walking, people out. It feels very alive. And so when I was just in New York, I was like, where is everyone? I thought this was the city that doesn't
yeah,
sleep. Everyone's sleeping.
yeah.
So
Well, I know we have a couple more minutes, but I just want to now I'm just remembering because all those guys back in the day before you were even on the show all came into Republic. So you had
mhm,
like the Sheps and the Whitneys and the Austins and all that,
yeah,
and you saw all that crazy stuff. Like you are the
yeah,
keeper of so many secrets that
yeah.
I mean. It isn't we like I remember running a bar and you would just see everything go down and it was such an interesting, or you would see from the cameras in the office and you'd be like, "Oh, this
Mhm.
is hysterical." Like did you, I mean, how many times have you had to pull the men of Southern Charm or even Southern Hospitality and say, yo, watch it, you're getting into the danger zone here?
I
Do
mean,
you do that still or no?
I haven't pulled them, but I've sent a text. Or I've elbowed a bouncer, or so was Lamar, and yeah, there's always one of the cast members or something made some snarky remark. I remember one time on a podcast, like, oh, if she knew stuff, she would say it. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't.
No,
Because
no,
guess what? The show is not my number one. So I'm not
yeah.
here to throw anybody under the bus. And I have
Nobody wants to, you
a
don't want people
lot.
to think that they're going to be busted out for,
Yeah.
partaking in your business and they
Yeah,
want a
that's
safe place.
my business is the vault that it is, and it will always stay that way. And the show couldn't pay me enough to do that. So yes, do I have a lot? Absolutely. Am I ever
Well,
going to use it?
let me
No.
pitch another show or a podcast
You know
down
what
the
I mean?
line.
But like,
Leva's
I can
Vault.
look at somebody
Leva's
like,
Vault is the new show.
listen, I used to see you 5 years ago doing whatever you were doing. Like, don't fuck with me. You know what I mean? Kind of deal. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's um, there's nothing deep and dark about it. But yeah, I see
Yeah.
everyone in the dark, of course.
Would you ever think your friend Cameron, would she ever come back to the show?
She seemed like she was just like ready to run for the hills at
Yeah.
the season that I came on. And I think that um I don't know like where at this point. I mean, obviously she fit in, she's friends with everyone, but I feel like she even towards the end was feeling a little bit like what am I doing here? Like I'm out of touch. I think for me, I'm the same, I'm a little bit older than Cameron, but I think because I own the clubs and I have such a social life, it still connects me to like them running around town or like the younger people. Whereas for her, you're never going to see her out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So she felt very disconnected. I think the reason that I'm a married woman in my 40s and I'm still connected is because of my business. Otherwise, why would I ever see any of these people? I would
No,
never.
that's the thing. But that's why
At
Southern
soccer practice
hospitality
and like
works
going to
so
bed.
well, because it's like so natural that you're there and you
Yeah.
provide this kind of different experience. Finally, Vanita, I don't know how close you are with Vanita, but obviously
Hmm.
we're seeing her with mild flirtations with JT already at the beginning. And I'm like, what is going on? And I mean, JT's super quirky and funny, but did that surprise you that Vanita would entertain a potential relationship with JT?
So JT and Benita have had chemistry, I think, all of last year. I picked up on it. I never said anything because she was in a very committed relationship. But this year, on our way to the and I can say this because we've passed that point, but on our way to the horse races, the Carolina Cup, she was saying that her and Manny were sort of like dunzo or not good or whatever. And I literally looked at her, looked at JT and like winked. And I was like, now I can finally say it. What about,
Yeah.
because they're like best friends. And we were at a dinner and like he had her sitting at the head table with him, and he was texting her and I about flower arrangements, and she was like, I've already got it done. And then she said something the other day like before we were getting on that bus, and she said, well, I know where the key is, like to his house. So I was like, how do you know, like
Whoa.
to the ends, not his house,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
ends. And I was like, how do you know where the spare key is? And so to me, I'd already seen it coming. I'm
Well,
not
anyways,
opposed to
if
it,
you
but
if you
JT
watch
is
the trailer,
JT's.
it looks like that he blows it eventually because she's in tears at one point, and I guess that JT flames out, and that's why all this drama starts happening at the end of the season. But we'll see. And then finally, Taylor. Is it weird to watch her without Shep? And obviously, you are tied in with Gaston and all of these people through the bar. Is
Yeah.
that weird to watch somebody go from dating Shep to dating somebody relatively more her age? And can you have a one-on-one conversation with Taylor? I mean, you're a businesswoman. She's,
Hmm.
trying to make her
I was
way.
I was really proud of Taylor, and in the beginning, when we were hanging out, I think she was struggling. Now remember, she's coming off of like losing her brother and this new relationship and all this stuff, and the Gaston of it all. Sally has a lot to say about it, and so it's like coming back into your friend group off the rough season with her and Austin, which was she's feeling like she has to like gain everyone's trust back. So I really was like, I'm just proud of you that you're setting boundaries, because I feel like all of the Austin and stuff wouldn't have happened last year had she set really big boundaries. She wasn't good at that, and she's really good at that this year, but it's not easy. And
Yeah, you can
so
tell.
I'm proud of her, but I can tell, and I kept saying to her, I was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Like this is like the grown up stuff you have to do, and it's not always going to feel, because this is a friend group that doesn't like boundaries. We don't like boundaries in this
Yeah,
friend
you're
group.
encouraged. You're
you
encouraged to
know
not have boundaries in
yeah,
shows like
everyone's
this.
going to be
So
up in your business. Everyone's going to be like, this is a and I was like, in order to not get really ugly, just try to maintain boundaries. And all of us have let them go at some point or another, where we've lost our temperament, including myself. But I was proud of her, and it was hard to watch, yeah, but it because it's not without a lot of bumps and hiccups and
yeah.
stuff. And Shep kind of, I think, doesn't want to accept it. Like he has a type of love for her that I think will just
Oh, he
always be
already
there.
went online last week saying, "Oh, her parents still wanted us to be together," and then she was like, "No, they didn't." Are you like? So I'm like, "Hey, save this for the camera, you guys. Do not do this online right now."
Yeah.
I know this is our time. I just wanted to remind people, Southern Charm's on right now every Thursday. It's one of my favorite shows and has been on Bravo for so long, but I implore you to get caught up on Southern Hospitality. You can start at second season, and I think you'll be like, even if you're like, oh, it's too much, start at the second season then. But this
Hmm.
third season, I have a feeling is going to pop off. And we need this with the Vanderpump Rules recent news with the OGs like this. We got to put all our eggs into the Southern hospitality basket. And I hear they are not going to disappoint. I've hung out with these kids a couple of times, and it's Vanderpump energy. I will say that as a compliment. And I think they're making a lot of mistakes still, which is always really fun to watch in reality television.
Totally unaware. Totally unaware.
They don't.
Blissfully unaware.
Even last night, Joe Bradley was saying things at the party where I was like, God, I wish this was a scene on camera. I wish this was a scene on camera.
Yeah.
Anyways, Leva, I thank you so much for all of your time. I hope to do ayahuasca with you one day and work on ourselves. And I hope to talk to you later in the season of Southern Hospitality once all of that craziness gets going. How else do we support you? We go to all your businesses when we're in Charleston, and we follow you on Instagram. And anything else coming up that we can support you with?
Yes. I mean, we're opening a new place. It's called Jax Dax right next to Republic. And the namesake is a guy who works for us. He got cancer when he was really young. He had a 10% chance of surviving. He lost his leg, but he's been cancer free. And so that space, it's going to be like daiquiris, all frozen drinks. But we're committing to several like Make-A-Wishes a year because
I love that.
He got a Make-A-Wish, and I think that gave him like that extra oomph. And yeah, he's a charming, handsome, successful guy now. So we were like, that's really inspiring. And he loves a frozen drink. So
I love it. It's harder as I get older for the hangovers, but I love a frozen drink. That's a perfect drink to have on King Street, I think, as well. So
it really is. And we're going to do them recipe style, not sloppy.
Okay.
So we're going to do them with like good ingredients, not a ton of sugar, like a really nice, fresh drink. And in that space, we're going to have a big reveal for, another business that I'll be opening. So stay tuned.
Well, geez, you pretty much own all of Charleston, so I'm gonna have to check with you to ask permission to come back next time to get in. But I mean, truly, an amazing experience. You are, I just think, so great, and I'm so excited for this next season of Southern Hospitality. Leva Bonaparte, everybody, go support. I'm telling you, you're gonna love Charleston and love her businesses. Thanks, Leva.
Thanks, Ryan. So good to talk to you.